Welcome back to the Quad Damage Podcast. I'm Robert, as usual, joined by Midnight Medium and by Deadforge.
Howdy.
Today's guest is a titan of the retro FPS revival. You probably know him best for the adrenaline-soaked demon-slaying throwback that is Dusk, but he's also the mind behind the minimalist nightmare Iron Lung, the haunting Fingerbones, and the eerie Moon Silver.
Sliver, not silver. Yeah. It is Sliver.
It's a Sliver.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. So
very bad choice of title.
The Moon Slither. So yes. He's a composer, designer, writer, and now, thanks to a certain YouTube megastar, a cinematic collaborator. It's the pixel-pushing prophet of dread himself, David Szymanski.
Geez, that is the best intro I've ever gotten to a interview or podcast.
Without further ado, let's get booming.
Let's get booming.
I don't know that I'd describe myself as a titan, though. I think I'm more a little goblin creature of the retro FPS industry.
Oh, so you're saying that Chop Goblins is a biography now?
Honestly, I'm probably closer to a Chop Goblin than any other any protagonist of any of my games. I'm more like the goblins. Yeah.
Yeah,
he's just a Chop Goblin, just jumping through time, space. You know.
Yep.
Going back behind Dusk, then. Before Dusk, you were already dabbling in horror with titles like The Moon Slither and Fingerbones, both of which I've played, both of which are available on Steam. Everyone, go play them. They are really very good games. What drew you, though, to psychological horror over things like traditional jump scares? Do you have a personal philosophy when it comes to crafting dread in your games?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say I'm definitely not anti-jump scare, because in most of my games there is, something that you could call a jump scare at some point in most of them. Mostly I just approach stuff with it's real simple. It's just like, do I think this is scary? And a lot of what people think of when you say, like a jump scare with the loud music and a lot of that just doesn't work for me. Especially in a lot of horror movies, where it's like, if you've seen a few horror films, you start to see the pattern of exactly how the scares are set up, and it's like you can see them coming. That's something that drove me nuts in a Quiet Place. Which was otherwise a really good movie, but then it's like, oh man, you're really gonna have the musical stings, and you're gonna do but
yep.
There's a template, isn't there, that you can see that they're playing by. Yeah. And
I know there's some guys like Puppet Combo. I know is completely the opposite. Like he loves those sort of scares, the classic jump scares. I think it's just a very, like a lot of horror, it's a very subjective thing. And for me, I guess I tend to go with the idea of, if you need, and again, this like I said, is a subjective thing. I'm not going after other creators here, but I always feel like if you need a loud noise or sudden movement to make something scary, then you failed the horror part. My ideal is that you should be able to, if you've done the work building up the scare, you should be able to do anything. And it will be scary. It's like, what makes it scary is the context that you create beforehand. And that's what I try to do in my horror games, some more successfully than others, is I focus a lot on that building up of context. You mentioned dread. And I guess I don't really think about dread as a concept as much as I just think about, like I said, the context of things. It's like, if you have this goal of, okay, well, I want to scare this moment to be scary, then you kind of work backward and think about what all needs to be in place with the player what do they have to, what state of mind do they have to be in? What information do they have to have? All of that, and just in doing that, I guess that creates this sense of dread as that builds up. But usually I'm not even thinking about like, okay, let's make this dread inducing. It's just thinking of like, okay, well, what do I need to do to put the player in the right headspace for these set piece moments to work?
Okay, appreciate that point of view. I've said before in a previous episode that I always feel that horror falls into two categories. One is like the Evil Dead Blood and Guts, kind of splatterhouse horror, and the other is kind of like the Seven, Silence of the Lambs sort of dread sort of horror. And if you can master either one, that's great. And what you said about failing to make a horror is very true. I think it's also true of the opposite as well, like comedy. So, like, if you have to put a laugh track in your comedy, you failed at making a comedy. There is an art to what you guys do, and it is something, of course, that you've become quite a specialist in this.
It's almost exactly the same art too, because like I've said a bunch of times now, I think horror and comedy are like this far apart. They're you just turn the dial a little either direction, and one becomes the other.
Yeah, Sam Raimi does it very well. I think it's very good.
I mean, Evil Dead is that's the classic. That's like the poster child for horror comedy, right? Evil Dead 2.
In terms of our audience is going to know you most for Dusk, and obviously the history that Dusk has in terms of essentially it's one of the forefathers of the boom. We don't like using the term boomer shooter, of course.
Well, you guys aren't boomer shooter fans. As far as the term goes, no.
We've been saying it for years. We're like, no, not today. Not when the boomer shooter was here.
No, I'm interested. I would be interested to hear if you're willing to give the reasons for that, because I'm actually on the other side where I'm fine with the term. Yeah. But which I would be interested to hear why not.
I don't know how Medium feels about it. My answer, I'll try to keep it as concise as possible. And I don't like the term boomer shooter because it's so generic. So boomer shooters are a new genre, but yet people keep putting older games so that, like, they'll say Doom is a boomer shooter, Blood is. They're not. Boomer shooter is a new genre inspired by older genres. So I prefer the term retro FPS because it's an FPS game that is designed to be to look or play in a retro manner. How I equate it is that I say you wouldn't call what's it called? You wouldn't call Dead Souls a Soulsborne. It's the game that inspired the genre. So whenever people are like, "Oh yeah, Daikatana, fantastic boomer shooter," I'm like, "No, it's not. Dusk is a boomer shooter. Proteus is a boomer shooter." So this is why I prefer the term retro, because it's a little more specific and it can encompass both the old and the new. Whereas boomer shooter specifically is new. But Medium, how do
I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Oh.
I think personally, I think it's so like when you're referring to Duke Nukem and Doom and the actual shooters from the as far back as really the 80s into the early 2000s would be probably that whole time period from the 80s to the 2000s where we'd be calling these like old school, now retro FPS games, which have such a broad spectrum of what that entails between arena shooters, the more Doom or even Wolfenstein-like shooters, Quake, Serious Sam, Painkiller. I mean, all over the place. But anything in that time period you would consider like kind of a retro shooter. But like I said, it gets kind of jumbled up. But I would say like when we're referring to a boomer shooter, it's more so just the games inspired by games of that period. I think boomer shooter and retro are two separate things because those older retro games are what they are, and boomer shooters are just this new name for a genre that's just taking from what came before. Because there's really, what else would you call them? There's nothing else to really, call them other than just calling them first-person shooters. But they're obviously not the same as Call of Duty or Battlefield or Medal of Honor. That's a whole nother ball game of what those games are.
Yeah.
So,
although it gets really messy because I've been around long enough, and I imagine maybe you guys have also, where I remember the days where the big bad guy in the FPS industry was Halo. And that was the one where fans of Doom and Quake and stuff were like, this new game, this new mainstream console TV FPS. And now people lump Halo in as being like, oh, that's also kind of a boomer shooter. Like,
yeah.
When
it's
did
considered
that
a retro,
happen? What?
retro FPS now, yeah.
Yeah.
But when you go back and you're like, well, Halo came out in 2001 was Combat Evolved, so
well, that's
it wasn't even. It's not like Halo was that far after those games. So it's like, but that's just because games in general, from like the mid to late 90s to the early 2000s, evolved so drastically,
so
that
fast.
you have these, you have like these genres that's why like immersive sims and all these other things exist, because we was just starting to come up with random ass names for things that we don't know what to call them, because like Deus Ex is still like a first person shooter, but it's not just a first person shooter. So we just have to start throwing names at things. So when you say retro, it's so broad. And is a game inspired by Halo in the modern day, would that be considered a boomer shooter? I don't know.
Well, Dark Ages is basically a Halo game. So
What?
It's basically faster Halo. The combat design is very Halo, which isn't a bad thing. Halo is good combat design. It's so I think genre discussions surrounding maybe this is true of any sort of subgenre that you'd be that someone is an enthusiast about, but it's really fascinating how almost impossible it is to draw good, clear, concrete genre boundaries when you start getting down to that level of detail. For especially with, like you said, how fast things moved in the 90s, and also the fact that this is the thing that gets really crazy, is that Doom, when it came out, I'm preaching to the choir here, I'm sure, because you guys are all retro FPS nerds. But when that came out, they were trying to make a realistic game. That was like a realistic, scary horror game at the time. And in fact, a lot of those developers and designers and stuff, they were really striving for realism when they were making stuff like Doom or Quake, and then later on Half-Life.
It just kind of by chance became this fast-paced action thing. Yeah,
and then all of us now, we're actually striving for the opposite by copying the design of people who were trying to. It's weird. It's
right.
But yeah, that makes sense. My short take on the boomer shooter thing is basically that I actually do prefer the term retro FPS as sort of a blanket term to cover. I prefer that, but I've always been kind of iffy about policing genre terms that organically evolve. Back 10 years ago, it was walking sims that everyone was talking about I remember, may he rest in peace, our PC lord Total Biscuit. He was really he did not like the term walking simulators, and was trying to get virtual installation started and even at the time, it's like, dude,
I think that's equally as poor, but I do think that walking sim is a terrible name.
Also, it was like, dude, this isn't how it works. Many things have stupid. Do you think if they got to actually choose, the forefathers of the film industry would have picked movies as being
probably not.
That comes from moving pictures, movies. It's literally baby talk. It's it's terrible. All of these things they're always terrible. And you just can't do anything about it, because it's whatever evolves and whatever people pick up and start using, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So that's why I've always been like,
Exactly.
look, I know technically it's like they're Gen X shooters or whatever. I know that it's like, but this is what everyone's calling it. And honestly, as far as genre names go, hey, at least boom is an explosive noise. At least it's like, okay, they're boomer shooters because things explode. That's like, it could be worse. But at the same time,
it has a double meaning, because it's also like people saying, "Well, you're a boomer shooter."
The boomers are like 80
evolved.
now.
Yeah, because it evolved out of the 30-year-old boomer meme, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's also a very interesting discussion for like enthusiasts in the subgenre to talk about. Like, where are these distinctions drawn? Because, like I said, back when I was a teenager or a young adult, that cutoff point would be like 98. And anything that's like Half-Life influenced and beyond was like, that's the dark ages. That's when FPS games started dying. And now it's, however many years later, now it's like, okay, well, yeah, anything. I've seen people being like, oh yeah, 7th gen, that would be a boomer shooter, right? Like, no.
Yeah, so
maybe
when we're
I
talking,
don't know
so
anymore.
like when we're talking retro, yeah, I mean it's
yeah.
So I mean, you can look at games from like 10, 15 years ago, and you're like, where would I place those? Where do they go? Where does the where does the bullet storms and the just anything from that era? Like, what is?
I have never been on the bullet storm as a retro shooter train. Never. Even when that came out,
I wouldn't say it is either. But
I have been a proud bullet storm anti since the 2000s.
Yeah.
Not really. I'm just mostly joking.
Why don't we let's talk some Dusk.
All right, so as anybody who's not living under a rock would know, Dusk kind of exploded, kind of a meteoric event there.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll ask, and hopefully try not to make you retread too much ground. I'm sure you've tread many times. But yeah, how did that success kind of reshape your career and creative confidence? Was the question. Did you expect it to become a cult hit? I know Mr. Oshry was pretty confident on it, which we were.
Of course, yeah.
To
be fair to him, he kind of did. Like, he's not. That isn't just him being like, I knew all. It's like he really did know all along. Which I hate having to admit, giving his ego that boost. But no, he called it pretty early on. It was like, yeah, this is gonna do great. And I tend to be a little bit of a pessimist, and also I don't really have much. I have quite a bit more self-confidence now, but I'm always, and I think this is very common for people who work in a creative industry. Like, I am very self-critical, and I'm always second-guessing my decisions. So until like the demo release and the like the pre alpha and then the early access release, that whole like sequence of things, I didn't have any confidence in like until people actually started interacting with the game and responding positively. Then it was like, okay, there is something here. Before that point, it was kind of just, well, I think this is something I would want, and I'm just gonna guess that there are a lot of other people out there who would also want that. And it feels crazy to say now, because yeah, it sounds really crazy and out of touch now, because there are so many games that are not even just like straight up throwbacks like Dusk, but stuff that inherits from that DNA in different ways. Visually or things like that. Like, there's so much now. It's like, well, of course people would, but at the time, like, I couldn't find any good resources or references for like that sort of low resolution texture work, for instance. Like, there was nothing out there to look at as far as like what would this look like in a modern context, or how do you go about doing this with modern tools. So anyway, that's all to say that like starting out I was unsure, and then the game started, we started getting the game in front of people in a lot of different ways. And so as that happened, and as like the early access cycle happened, it was like we're pretty certain this is going to do well, because we already see how it's doing. That makes sense. And obviously that changed my career quite a bit, just in terms of like financial freedom. Like going from
I can imagine,
yeah, because I would say I started being a professional game developer in probably around like 2015-ish. So I was making a living making games before Dusk, but that was starting to dry up. And so that was, a huge weight off, when it's like, well, you don't have to worry about how bills are getting paid now. So that was a huge weight off, like I said, and a big career change, just in having like the freedom and having like an audience now that I could sell games to. It wasn't just beholden to the Steam algorithm, although we're all beholden to the Steam algorithm in some way.
Yeah, even for us as consumers, it's what's on there. But did you know?
I grabbed. I saw that Dusk trailer, right? That said it was like Doom, Quake, Blood, blah blah. And you hit the lift, and you go up, and you do and you take the backflip, come down, and as soon as I saw the backflip, I was like, yeah, I gotta have it. And I did get early access, and I was playing it on like just a crappy laptop that I had, and I could barely even run Dusk on it. It was rough.
To be fair, Dusk isn't that well optimized.
Yeah, I couldn't though. I beat Dusk on using GeForce Now on a cloud streaming platform.
Okay.
I couldn't run it on my PC as well, so I absolutely know what you mean. I do have a question in regards to. So Dusk, Scott Miller, and I agree with him, said that Dusk is very clearly the line in the sand, as this is the start of the boomer shooter genre. But it wasn't the only game of its kind to release around that time. Project Warlock was clearly in development, whilst Dusk was. Ion Fury was as well. Did you have any inkling that these were kind of, these retro-ish games were being made, and that maybe this was the start of something?
Let's see. So, to my memory, when I started on Dusk, the only games I was aware of that were treading the same ground were Rack had released some years before. The Rise of the Triad remake released some years before, 2013. Let's see. Shadow Warrior, the Shadow Warrior reboot.
The 2013,
and,
I think.
And the second one was like.
What, 2016? Yeah, because Doom, Titanfall 2, and Shadow Warrior 2 came out in the same year. Because that's what converted me to FPS games.
Yeah, okay. The sequel they were working on while I was working on Dusk, and then I think right as like Dusk development went into full swing as a New Blood game, Doom had come out, and the big one, the one that was like the big retro FPS titan in the indie scene, was Strafe, actually, if anyone remembers that.
I remember people saying how poorly optimized and stuff it was, that it wasn't the best game or something. Yeah.
It had issues, but that was the other one that, to my memory at least, it was like it was Strafe, and then Dusk was like the little guy, sort of nipping at Strafe and Doom 2016's heels.
How things have changed.
Yeah. So yeah, those were what I can remember, and I don't remember if I ever if I thought like, yeah, this is going to turn into a bigger thing, that or not. Yeah, I think for the most part, I really was just focused on, like, I hope Dusk lands and, you know, does well for everyone's expectations.
I had a follow-up question for you, David.
So,
I mean, because like nobody knows exactly the future, they can kind of suspect the outcome. If Dusk had sort of been maybe a middling success, or maybe just not taken off at all, would that have been a type of kind of reverential, backwards looking in terms of like the aesthetic and everything? Would that have been a style that you kept going with, or would you have been like, let's just go with something that's a bit more conventional and of the times?
Very likely I would have kept going with it. Because yeah, I don't really, I don't want to say I don't have another option, because I do, but it's like, that's sort of where my brain is, and that's sort of the level of fidelity that may a little higher now, but like that's around Dusk, maybe up to like Source Engine, you know, mid 2000s look is really, that's about what I can comfortably do as a solo developer. And Dusk, up until release, was for the most part a solo developed game. So yeah, I think I would have continued with it. I was honestly experimenting with that already, even back in like 2015 with the Moonsliver. I remember I tried out like, hey, what if I just make this like pixel textures like Quake? And didn't feel like it fit the aesthetic there, but like, so I was like moving in that direction for a while, and I almost feel like I would have been more likely to continue. Maybe not. So if Dusk had been like a middling success, the Dusk that was like a New Blood game and that we spent 3 years on had been a middling success, I guess that's a little bit maybe of a different story, because that might have been the end of my career period.
Yeah.
But if we assume like the Dusk I was originally going to make just on my own, I probably would have been even more likely to keep going with it, because like, I don't know, I feel like I still would have had more to do and more to experiment with in that area.
The loss probably would have been less because you were not part of something else with other people working on it and such. So you joined New Blood like while you were working on Dusk, right? So before you finished it, what's it been like working with New Blood ever since then? And has it offered up any kind of freedom or camaraderie with all the crew and everybody? And
definitely camaraderie. Dusk. It's interesting because like New Blood kind of didn't exist. I mean, New Blood very much didn't exist in its current form when I when I became part of it. And it actually kind of got built on Dusk, as Dusk was also being built on New Blood. They were kind of both built at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of like guys who are part of New Blood who like were originally just Dusk fans.
Right.
So it was, they were kind of built both at once, and the culture and everything and the camaraderie and everything of New Blood were kind of built at the same time. And after Dusk, like the experience changed a lot, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because Dusk was, like I said, up to release, it was almost entirely a solo developed game. Of course, with the, with an asterisk there, because, Andrew did music, Dave was co-designer and everything. And then a little later on in development, people who were started the beginnings of what would become the giant Discord server of New Blood that that we have now. They were helping out with the multiplayer and everything, so it was a very scrappy situation. It was very much the like, it's just a couple of guys working on a thing.
A true,
And
tried
then-
and traditional rag to riches story.
Yeah, and then very rapidly, after Dusk was done with, really even I'd say just within the last few years, New Blood grew immensely, and it went from within just the time frame of a couple of years, it went from being basically, you know, a indie. I mean, there's still an indie developer, but it essentially development now is like a more like a AA studio sort of situation. The culture's still there.
Yeah.
It's still very much the same sort of culture, but it's a much bigger undertaking now.
Imagine.
Yeah, and you went from like
and,
the Dusk and eventually like Ultra Kill, and now it's, you know, the Fallen Aces and Gloomwood and you know, just like bigger and better projects, I feel like.
Yeah, and honestly, like I had nothing to do with Ultra Kill or Fallen Aces or Faith. Well, I kind of had a little to do with Faith. Things like that. It's like there are a lot of different teams now working on things, as opposed to back in the day where it's like I would do some stuff and then send it to Dave or whatever.
Yeah. Cool.
Right. So having this kind of collaborative thing, has it allowed you to have that freedom to do things like chop goblins and stuff like that? A lot more easily?
Well, I tend to be a little, now I don't want the connotations of this are the image when I say lone wolf brings up this image of like the rugged Sigma male going it alone type. When I say I'm a little bit of a lone wolf, that's not what I mean. I mean more like I'm a weird like basement dweller. Sort of more the vibe you should.
You're telling me you're not going John Rambo and going on your own there?
No.
I'm using that comment for the promo for this episode.
Okay. So I started making games when I was relatively young and have gotten very used to like doing things a certain way. And I found that it's difficult for me to kind of do my stuff that's like very much my pet projects. It's difficult for me to do that as a sort of auteur delegating stuff. Just creatively, I find it really difficult. So, what I found over the few years after Dusk was that I needed like my own stuff to work on, if that makes sense. Like I love
stuff like Chop Goblins, Butcher's Creek, Squirrel Stapler, all that kind of stuff is kind of like just like a breath of fresh air kind of thing for you, something to freshen up the palate while you're working on other things, that kind of stuff.
And basically. So I think there's definitely a lot that's hard to quantify in terms of how useful it is to have like just the insane collection of talent and experience that is at New Blood, and have that available to bounce ideas off of, or just to learn stuff from. So in that way, like that's hard to quantify. But for the most part, when I'm working on something that's just a David Szymanski game, it's kind of basically the same as it was back in 2015. You know, I don't end up using a lot of extra resources.
Yeah.
Our guest has 5 minutes to answer 5 questions given to us from a random question generator. So question number 1, what is the most recent fact you learned that surprised you?
Got him.
Jeez. I only have a minute to come up with this. Oh man.
Think of a particular category then. So like what dinosaurs, food, Roadworks, whatever. You know, something that you just
Secret Agent Wizard Boys.
you googling it.
Let's see. It's probably something really specific and engine related, like something like, that Trespasser had bump mapping.
Right?
Like Jurassic Park Trespasser had in the 90s had a primitive version of bump mapping that you can see, and dynamic shadows.
Yeah.
I
And we
know
all
that's a
learned
really
something
dumb-
new today.
Yeah. Or maybe something about sharks.
but impressive to hear nonetheless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it'd be something about sharks. I just saw a shark exhibit, and I do like sharks.
Okay.
But I'm struggling to remember.
Yeah.
It's probably something like that.
Aquatic
Probably
life's
something
pretty
shark
interesting, I
related.
agree.
Yeah. Oh, no, I actually know exactly what it is. It's that the Portuguese man of war is made up of, like, it's made up of discrete living things. It's like a community of living things. It's not a creature in and of itself.
Oh, okay.
I learned that at QuakeCon. I
Interesting.
was like, what?
weird.
That's so weird. Okay, next question.
All right, question number 2. Would you feel comfortable showing me the photos on your phone?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's like it's either going to be my kids, like my family, or texture shots, like or like screen caps of random garbage from Discord or
The important stuff in life.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Of course. All right, question number 3. What small stuff do you sweat even though you know it shouldn't? What? No, you should. Ah, man, I done fucked that up. What small things do you worry too much about that you know you shouldn't?
Everything. All the small things.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All the small things.
The state of my house, because I have 3 children and 5 pets, so my house is a disaster zone at all times, and there is a not insignificant amount of my mental space taken up by just being stressed out about how much of a mess my house is.
Oh, I'm sure.
At all times.
I feel you.
Question number 4. What's your biggest first world problem?
I don't know if this counts or not, but the one that, if this counts as a first world problem, it's definitely the biggest, which is that it's very hard to determine if something is, when something is gluten-free, if it is free from cross-contamination. And that's, I don't know if that counts as a first world, because that's what I'm not sure about, because it's extremely, it's extremely nitpicky, but technically it could be fatal. Because I have celiac disease, which is fatal if you don't stop eating gluten, but also is not necessarily fatal if you only eat a little bit. So I don't know if that counts. But that's what immediately comes to mind, is like, I have to deal with that so often, and I have to be that guy in the restaurant who is like, hey, tell me about your gluten, like your procedures for keeping, cross-contamination from happening. And I always feel like an enormous jackass doing it.
But your life depends on it.
To an extent, I mean, if I eat gluten at one meal, it's not going to kill me. But technically, if I were to continue eating gluten for, I don't even know how long, a
prolonged period,
matter of months or whatever, it would kill me.
Yeah.
Okay, so 5th and final question. If Dusk hadn't come out, would we still have the boomer shooter explosion?
Yes. I am
I agree.
almost 100% sure, yes. I think that Dusk was influential, and that it did sort of spur a lot of other people on to go in that direction, but I think it was it was going to happen regardless. And honestly, I think it was Doom 2016 that was the main Kickstarter of that. Because I know a lot of devs who at that time were not retro shooter or even necessarily shooter enthusiasts at all, who were paying a lot of attention to Doom 2016 because that was huge. It just came out of
Rise of
nowhere.
Triad and Shadow Warrior
Even
were like,
so those were
going,
but
hey, we're here, and then Doom's like, no, we're back.
Yeah.
And then like Dusk happened, and then but there was also so many games that were like in development at the same time, like we mentioned Project Warlock and all these other things that all dropped like not too far from each other, and then like
I think it
just kept happening.
Yeah, I think it was something of an inevitability. Someone was always going to be the first one. I was just very lucky, maybe forward thinking, but I think I was just very lucky to start in that direction at a somewhat early time.
Do you think that was just sort of like an inevitable reaction to kind of like AAA fatigue or something like that, or is it just something more?
I think so. I think that there's a lot of things that even outside of games where this is true, but definitely in games, there's this element of like a pendulum swinging in different directions. And it's kind of nice in the sense that the games industry, at least so far, is a little bit self-mediating. Like you can't ever have one thing for too long. It never really stagnates. When I was younger, I thought, the industry is like everyone. I think when they're younger, they're like, these games, they're not as good as, this older stuff, and the industry is dying or whatever. And the reality is that it's always changing. And I think that
ever evolving.
The games had been, or shooters, I should say, had been stuck in the linear pseudo-realism cinematic set piece whole thing for long enough that people were really, really sick of it. And it also happened to coincide with the time when a lot of people who had played Doom or Quake, or maybe later on, maybe Serious Sam or whatever, were starting to get old enough that they could actually undertake these projects in a larger way. That I think it was an inevitability, and I was just lucky to be at the forefront of it. Let's see. So the main inspiration for Iron Lung as a concept was the Loch Ness Monster. Actually, it was like a Loch Ness Monster Museum in Scotland, in Loch Ness. That my wife loves museums, and I like them to an extent, but not for quite as long a period of time as she does. So my mind tends to wander in museums, and so I wish I could remember exactly what the exhibit was saying, but it was something about like something that put this image in my head of like being down underwater in a submarine and just seeing these images, these like camera photos of a creature of some sort, but the photos almost look like like in my head they look like ultrasounds or something like that, where it's like you just get this hint of the shape and stuff. And I thought that was a really cool idea, so I put it in my giant list of cool ideas that I have, and it just sat there for a while. And then I got to a point where like I kept coming back to it and thinking about it and being like, there's something really cool there, like that could make a really cool little thing. And then I got to a point where I was like, I wanted to make a short a game that was sort of back to horror, or back to like not exactly narrative driven horror, but like not action driven horror, I guess.
One of those virtual installations.
And I wanted to actually like finish and yeah exactly. And so that was like the initial the initial like the initial idea. And then let's see, the sense of claustrophobia and like sense of impending doom and everything, to be perfectly honest, like I don't remember exactly what inspired that, but the fact that this was happening during like everything surrounding COVID has to have had some impact on
the isolation.
Yeah,
certainly,
because the idea of making it feel claustrophobic and horrifying, and like that was there from the beginning of like making the. I don't remember exactly why I wanted to go in that direction, other than it just felt right to kind of make the situation itself be the enemy. Yeah.
I really like the kind of minimalist horror kind of thing. But like Iron Lung, and there's like Buckshot Roulette, Inscription to a degree, I think is another one. And there's a few others that aren't really names are coming to my mind right now, but like they're just very minimalistic. Just very like it's more about the environment telling a story more so than telling you a story directly. And especially in a horror setting, I feel like that's like insanely interesting. And just I think the intrigue is more in you trying to piece together what it might be versus you, the developer, telling you, the person playing it, exactly what it means.
Yeah, the fear of the unknown.
And I think that's a lot more enticing of a game design, in my opinion, anyway, for a horror game, is you having to figure out what's going on with very little information.
Yeah, that it gets back to like ultimately like the driving the driving informer for a lot of what I do is really just down to like what I want. Or maybe not even what I would want, but what works for me. Or what doesn't work for me. And when it comes to horror, I'm very odd because I like kind of both extreme ends. Like either it has to be like just the stupidest, like slasher schlock. Like I love Friday the 13th, for instance.
Same.
It has to be like on the complete other end of like really, really understated horror. And that's the stuff that actually scares me. The stuff where it's like, okay, there's a monster like jumps out or whatever, that doesn't faze me, but found footage does. Like, one of the scariest movies that I've watched in recent years was Hell House LLC. Like that got
I haven't watched
me.
That one.
It's surprisingly good because you look at it and you're like, oh, that's gonna be some like dumb scary clown schlock, and then it's actually like terrifying. Like it is really good at getting under your, but like, so that's the stuff that gets to me, is the stuff where it's like there's just an implication that something's off, or it's like something mundane that when combined with this other information, suddenly it's like, oh, you get that sinking feeling. And so so that's what I do in when I want to scare people. Then is I'm just like, well, what would scare me?
I'm really a sucker for like just mystery in general. When it comes to anything, really, I like a good mystery and trying to put the pieces together, even if the pieces aren't even there. Like, I think it's one of the most compelling tools in storytelling. Actually, it's just more so the I guess it would be like the reader's imagination, or the person consuming the thing's imagination is powerful.
And definitely that, and also just that I like if you can figure out one really good unanswered question that the player or whoever is they're like, I need to know why this happened, how this happened, whatever. Like that's a really compelling story. Like that's a really compelling carrot on a stick for leading someone through a story.
Sure.
it's really dumb because the way it came about sounds like before it was actually announced, like I was like, I can't tell any, that sounds like I made it up. This is the because it was literally just him DMing me on Twitter out of the blue.
Oh, okay.
And being like, hey, you want me to make an Iron Lung movie? Like there was a little bit before that. He was like, hey, I like your games or whatever. It's like, okay, cool and stuff. And then after not that many messages, it's basically like, hey, want me to make an Iron Lung movie? And then I later learned that he had wanted to open with that, to just like DM me and be like, I want to make an Iron Lung movie. Are you in? And Amy had been like, you can't just cold open with that. You just like,
you gotta
so it was
first.
literally just that. It was things. I mean, I don't want to tell his side of the story for him, because I don't know the entire story of like why Iron Lung and what, but it's like the timing of when he was starting to think about wanting to do a feature film and him playing Iron Lung just happened to coincide really well. It was like in his mind, then he and so it was just happenstance, really.
Yeah, the right project at the right time.
It was exactly, and honestly, there's a lot of things that have happened like this in my career. Maybe not a lot, but more than one or two, where it's just like stuff happens to line up in a way where I'm like, okay, this is how it has to go. Like I can see like all of the pieces have lined up. You know, I don't like whether you're you know, whatever you believe as far as like religion or the supernatural or karma or whatever. It's like I see all of these things lining up, these discrete parts, and I know this is the direction I have to go in because I can see, you know, all of those parts building the path. And that was kind of how it was. It just happened to work out. And it's almost weird now to say he was a perfect fit for it, because if I'm perfectly honest, like I would say Iron Lung is, as a collective whole, Iron Lung, the I don't know what to call it either. Not really the franchise, but like the whole universe. I think Mark has significantly more claim to that than I do at this point. Because, you know, I worked hard on the game and I tried to make the best possible game I could, but that took me a few months, you know, and then I did post-release content afterward, but it's like, he has spent, you know, like he's spent so long in this universe and helping to flesh out this universe and like bring it to life that it's like, it's definitely as much his as it is mine now, probably even a little more his. So it feels weird to be like, he was the perfect fit for the project, but that's also because like, you know, in ways that'll hopefully become clear once the movie finally releases. Which I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel approaching for that.
Andrew had nothing but good things to say about him as well, talking about him being flown out, and Markiplier was apparently very cordial, very serious about what he was doing, and basically the confidence and the kind of, we can do this kind of got Andrew on board. So I'm very thankful that it's,
sorry.
I was just going to say I'm very thankful that someone did take that, because Iron Lung within our sphere is obviously a very popular game, and you know it's I've used the term in the past, but it seems odd saying it to your face. It's a Szymanski joint. Yeah, you know. So you can tell a Szymanski game when you look at it just from a screenshot. But to have it kind of transcend, you know, that kind of thing, and now make it onto a far bigger public. I'm happy that it's getting that kind of recognition.
When I saw that trailer, it looks really good, actually. Yeah,
it is very good, and I know, like, I am the least I am the least unbiased source you could hear from, but the movie is very good. I don't think people are ready for for it in terms of it being like it's a proper like movie. You know what I mean? It's not just like, oh, here, let's make a fun little movie version of the game. It's like, this is a serious, proper horror film.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at it.
Please
Like I
tell
said,
me
the
it's
trailer
go-
looks
it's-
impressive.
Yeah. Please tell me it's going to theaters. It's not going straight to streaming.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's not out yet, is because the plan has always been for it was filmed and edited and scored and everything as a theatrical release. Like from the ground up, this was built as being a theatrical experience.
Certain movies need to be seen on a big screen, and certainly with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that horror movies absolutely fit into that genre. You need to be in a dark room with a bunch
I
of
agree.
people throwing popcorn in the air, sort of thing.
Mhm.
You can't get that on your 65-inch TV at home,
Yeah.
no matter how big it is. But
I'll also say the sound for the movie is like,
yeah, it's a huge difference.
it
yeah.
was
It's half the
created
experience,
and
yeah.
mixed for a theater, and it makes full use of that.
yeah, nice.
Hell yeah. Especially for horror, whether it be game or film, it's such an important factor to have good sound.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
when you're in a
very
movie
much
theater,
agree.
that sound is very different because it's more surround. It's more,
Yeah,
it's a lot more impactful, like you're there than
Yeah.
it is in your living room, unless you have a really good surround sound setup.
Yeah.
I agree.
So yeah, I think horror is always better in the movie theater than it is in your own living room, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a guest or a question rather, from our previous guest, Julian Evier, who made the Threshold game and also worked in Arcane over the past couple
what
of years. Threshold.
Threshold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he worked at Arcane.
Have you played
as well.
Threshold?
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about now. The name didn't ring a bell at first, or the name
Actually-
didn't click at first. It rang a bell.
Yeah, that's actually a game that fits into that same category as Iron Lung.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is? I know what this game is, but oh, okay, this one.
Oxygen.
Yeah, I have this wish listed. That looks horrifying.
It's really
It's
good.
very
It's
good.
a
It's
very
very
short
good.
game. Yeah, you can beat it in like an hour, but it's just the mechanics of it, the atmosphere of it. Deadforge is right, and it's very kind of Iron Lung adjacent in terms of how you feel about
It has
playing.
like 5+ endings and all kinds of
Oh,
other stuff.
nice.
So there's a lot of cool and neat details that change depending on certain things you do or don't do.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, that one's on my wish list. That immediately it was like, oh, that looks horrible in the best way.
Yeah, well, his question is asking you to choose between your children, apparently. He goes, which of your own games do you love the most from the pre-Dusk era?
Oh, from the pre-Dusk era. Oh, geez. They all represent different things. I think as if we take that question in terms of like which one I like the most as a complete package, as like a game, which one I think represents the best vision, I think it's Moonsliver. But I think in terms of like the ambition of what I was trying to do at the time, Music Machine, I don't feel a lot of connection to Fingerbones anymore. I'm just
Really?
a completely different person now.
Wow.
I don't feel like, yeah, but I appreciate that I did like land on something there that worked for a lot of people, and still I get people who are like, that's one of my favorite games. I don't think I could possibly remake it now. I'm just a completely different person artistically. And then Wolf and Autumn, like, I tried.
I thought that was really good.
I think, oh, real? I appreciate that. That's one. I'm always like, oh, it could have been so much better.
Yeah.
Like I got mired down in the wrong stuff. But anyway, so that's a long answer. I think probably as a whole, the Moonsliver, because that's the one that like even now I'm like, I could remake that, and that would still be a pretty darn good little narrative horror game. I think everything kind of works together pretty well. There's improvements that could definitely be made, but it's like the core of what's there is all pretty solid, I think.
So it's perfect. Our next episode is actually going to be sort of a Doom 3 breakdown. I think a lot of it was surrounding kind of like the shotgun's functionality, the design of it, why it works, why it may not, this and that. We can go all over the place. I'm sure we'll hit the flashlight as well. We always like to have our guests on the particular episode that we're on ask the future guests a question about their topic normally. Did you have any questions for the panel? That panel on Doom 3 is going to be Under the Mayo, Ruby Ranger, Yak Show, and Trav. Or Trav guys, you probably knew them in the past.
Oh man, I think that I could come up with like a dozen Doom 3, because Doom 3 is like an infinite well of discussion. But I'm gonna go with just the basic one, which is, do you think Doom 3 is a good Doom game? Why or why not?
That's a very open-ended question, actually, because it incites discussion. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that could be the entire podcast just discussing that.
Yeah. That's a pretty enticing and pretty nuanced question that answers very, very wildly on.
And the answers change depending on... Yeah, and the answers, like, the discussion changes depending on when the question is asked, because, like I've touched on before, a decade ago, it would have been a very different discussion than it is now. Because now you have to contend with what is a good Doom game.
Yeah.
There's like
I remember
3 different versions of what's a good
I remember the discussion around it when I was playing it as a kid, when I was playing Doom 3. I remember a discussion around it because a lot of people like to compare it with the movie that came out around a similar time. And it didn't help that there were correlations with aspects of the way they did the film and Doom 3. And then on top of that, it was like, Doom's not a horror game. And I'm like, yeah, well, kind of is, though. Like, the original was kind of meant to be a horror game. And people forget that because they just focus on the action-y FPS.
That's one of those, that's one of those filter
Doom
opinions.
becomes less scary.
Yeah, that's one of those, like, filter opinions where it's like, if you think Doom was never a horror game, we know, like, the level of knowledge you have of Doom now at this point.
What do you think is the best Doom game?
Oh Lord, what do I think is the I am a staunch advocate of Doom 1 and Doom 2 being considered the same game because they basically are the same. Like, Doom 2 is basically an expansion.
I agree with that.
That makes it easier because then I'd say, well, obviously the original Doom 1/Doom 2, like, that's the best Doom game. If we don't combine them, it's really hard because Doom is a series that has there are multiple titles that could vie for position in the best FPSs of all time list. So, like, I think I'd have to go still with, like, Doom 1 just on the basis of, like, if there's very few video games in general that can say that can boast that level of influence and also that level of still being still being fun to play now, still being relevant.
I don't know if there's any game that exists.
And that combination is like whether you oh, sorry, what was that?
Sorry, I know the lag was bad, I could tell. But yeah, I think I even said that in some Doom video I made a million years ago. It's like, that seems like no other game can quite boast playing that well 30 years out. Not your Marios, not your Zeldas, nothing like that.
I think it's it has a very strong argument for being one of the best games of all time, and for me, very clearly, like, this is whether you believe FPS should be, or whether you believe things should be judged based on legacy or based on how good they are at that moment. It's like Doom has a pretty good claim to both at the same time.
Yeah.
So however, Doom Eternal is really good. Doom 3, I think, while I would not put that in a best FPSs of all time list, I think that time has been exceedingly good to Doom 3, and it is better now than it was ever on release, just in terms of, like, how fun it is to play, because like on release it was like, what is this mid 2000s shooter doing to my Doom? And now going back and playing it, it's like, this is awesome. It's Doom plus Half-Life plus System Shock 2.
People forget it's a remake
awesome.
of the first game.
Yeah. So but anyway, that's all to say, like, it's really hard to pick a best Doom game, but I have to go with the boring answer of the original.
Yeah.
I would say Doom 1. Yeah.
Do you think that Doom 2 is an expansion as well, Deadforge?
Oh, hell yeah. I don't know if you ever watched my video, my Doom and Quake are Eternal, retrospective thing that I did. Yeah, one of the early points of that video was that I don't think that Doom 2 is the sequel to Doom. I think it's an expansion of Doom, and that Quake was the actual Doom 2, in my opinion.
I could be on board with that.
It's a mega.
Those kind of like they kind of progress in a way that makes sense, because Quake is like the next evolution. It still has that kind of, demonic. It's a bit more medieval, but it still has that same kind of weird, culty, Cthulhu-ish weirdness going on, which I think was great.
Sweet. Now I'm looking up your catalog where you're mentioning Music Machine. Tell me a little bit about Pony Factory. That's not something, and that's not a game many people even know exists, much less talk about.
Yeah. Well, originally it was made in a week.
Oh wow!
Because it was for the very first Dread X collection, which the whole premise of that was like, okay, we'll pay a bunch of horror developers for a week's worth of work, and you'll make your the idea was like you're making your own like playable trailer for a larger game. That was sort of the gimmick. So I made it, the original one, in a week, and I really like parts of the Pony. Like I feel very fondly toward the Pony Factory, but it's definitely not one of my strongest games. Just objectively speaking, it's pretty scaled down and it's pretty bare bones and kind of just gets the job done. But then when I always wanted to do a Squirrel Stapler standalone, and I was thinking of just skipping the Pony Factory standalone, but then I had this thought of like, oh, my brother could use some work right now. What if he and I work together on doing this standalone version of it, and then we can like split the revenue? And so it just happened to work out to like, okay, now there's a little standalone version of it. So yeah, I am fond of it. I like all of because I was experimenting with a lot of little things like, oh, I've always wanted to do a high contrast black and white game. So it's high contrast. I've, always wanted to experiment with the Doom 3 flashlight idea. And like, I like this idea of like, taking, no, I wouldn't say I like it, but I find it gruesomely fascinating, this idea of like taking the human body and reshaping it into like a different creature. And then later with the standalone version, it was like, I really want to write more in this world, like really just go off the deep end in terms of how stupid and goofy it is. Like I want, because that's kind of a side of me that doesn't show up in the games quite as often, but like I have a really dumb, surreal, absurdist sense of humor, and getting to like put that into a horror game was really fun, and then informed kind of the direction Butcher's Creek took as well. And anyway, that's a long way of saying like it's just a little, it's a modest little game, but I'm very fond of it for all of those, for what it meant as far as like exploring these creative outlets. I love Secret Agent Wizard Boy. I wish that I was a bit, so I am part of that game, but for the most of the boots on the ground actual development, that's kind of Johnny and Evan are the main voices there. So it's really their game. I just, helped it. I helped it out getting to early access, and I weigh in on the design, and I write the music and stuff like that. But that game is something that when we were like in elementary school, we were play designing games exactly like that. Like that is a specific type of sandbox game that we have wanted to make since we were children, basically. And it's just great to make that and actually have it be even wilder and even more broken than we intended when we started it, and have that be an actual thing that exists that other people play and are like, yeah, this is the hardest that I've laughed in years. Just great. Nothing but positive feelings toward Wizard Boy so far.
Yeah.
But for the most part,
seem to like it.
Yeah. But to answer that, like, I'm less kind of actively involved in day-to-day development of it. So
Gotcha.
which actually makes like I don't have to deal with things like AI issues or like, oh hey,
is that kind of similar to your involvement with Gloomwood as well?
Yeah.
Like, or are you more?
Yeah, pretty much. I started out Gloomwood being very heavily involved. When it started as a New Blood game, at least, it was really Dylan and I were the main, were the main people kind of working on the design and development and everything. And you can still see there's a lot of textures in the game still that that I made, or things like that. I think even little bits of code that I did, although a lot of that has been redone very rightfully. Right. But then
that game's evolved crazily.
Then as more people started coming in and getting involved in it, then it would be like, well, there's no point in me doing this, like props. There's no point in me making the props. We have someone who is much better at making props who can do that. Or there's no point in me, doing this or whatever. So it then turned into a situation where it's like, you guys have this covered. Like, there's really not a lot that I can do to help this to help here. So for the most part now, I'm just kind of just kind of there to weigh in on creative decisions and the direction of things and stuff like that. Yes.
Okay, do tell.
So yeah. So in terms of horror, I actually think I'm gonna for the next year or two, maybe even 3, be backing off from horror a little bit, just because I want to do other stuff. The game that I'm primarily working on right now is it's actually a isometric shooter, which I'm a little scared about because I don't know if there's actually a market for the game I'm making. But
starts another revolution.
It's sort of it has a setting that is like, okay, yeah, it's very much in line with the stuff I do, but it's isometric, it's an action shooter, it's going to be family friendly, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. So that's a bit of a, that's all a bit of a departure. So for the foreseeable future, I think I'm just backing off from horror just for a bit, just because there's other stuff I want to do. I'm going to come back to it. It may even work its way into that other stuff without me realizing it. But there is stuff there are ideas and like themes and stuff like that I still have not covered that I do want to cover. There's one really wild idea I have that is maybe too wild to actually do. like it's kind of just in terms of like the thematic content. And I don't want people to read too crazy into that, not in like it's like really, you know, not like essay or anything like that, but just in terms of how like out there
Right.
the whole premise is.
Yeah.
But then in terms of like game mechanics in general, yeah, there's this one idea that has been popping up in my head continually, and that I've started to like. It's weird how fun it is in games to just like go find a thing, like hunting stashes in Stalker, for instance.
The fetch quest.
And it's been really sticking with me. It's like there is something there in terms of like, hey, there's a thing here, figure out where it is, or there's a thing up on the roof there, figure out how to get up there. There's something really there's something potent there, I think. So that's something I've been thinking a lot about. I don't know if that will turn into anything, but I've wanted to do a like my own sort of take on an immersive sim style game, which would be different from like Gloomwood or Wizard Boy. I've wanted to make this will probably never happen. Yeah, this will probably never happen, but I have for years and years and years I've wanted to do like a Half-Life style game. So yeah, I've wanted to do an RPG, like I've wanted to try doing something like Daggerfall, but
Wow.
but like yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, and usually what ends up happening is like a collection of these things ends up getting they end up kind of working together into one particular game. Like the isometric shooter that I said I'm working on, that's ended up amassing a bunch of different other ideas. It's like, oh, this will fit here, and this will fit here, and this, and then it'd be kind of like Dusk, where Dusk was like, it is a boomer shooter, but also it's half immersive sim. It's also like, you know, part has these like horror themes. It has like it was like a catch-all for a bunch of different ideas.
Right.
So
Nice.
so yeah, there's always stuff. There's always new stuff I want to do. If anything, the only constant that there's been in my career so far is that every few years I want to try something completely new, for better or for worse.
You got to keep those creative juices flowing and stuff. You know, you
Yeah.
don't want to be an action movie star for 10 years. Every once in a while, you want to do
Yeah.
comedy. The same
Although
thing applies.
I am sometimes a little jealous of like Puppet Combo or Air Dwarf, or it's like, wow, they have a really strong personal brand.
Yeah.
Like you think Atari horror, that is Air Dwarf. That they own, they don't own it, but it's like that is their thing that they've cultivated and
It's
made
like the go-to
or like,
example of it. Yeah.
yeah, or like a Puppet Combo. It's like they, you know, they are the guy for 80s slasher survival horror inspired games. It's like a very strong brand. I'm like, well, I've made a bunch of stuff. It's all kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like my YouTube channel. I don't have one thing. Let's do a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining an extra special episode of the Quad Damage Podcast with a guy you may have heard of, may have played some of his games before, just a little known figure in the community. David, thank you so much for joining us. It's a real honor to meet you. And
Yeah, no problem.
Well, I'm sure nobody has a hard time finding you, but if they needed to, they just were like, what's he doing next? Where could they find you on the interwebs? Keep track of your next projects.
Honestly, that's a good question, because I've wound down my Twitter usage to basically zero. Used to be Twitter. Now I guess yeah, I guess I have a Blue Sky I sometimes post on, which is also Dusk Dev. You search Dusk Dev anywhere and you should find me. And I'm still trying to decide which of those places you find me is going to be the best one for letting people know about what I'm working on. But
Yeah.
whenever
Well,
I'm ready
always
to
type your
talk
name
about
into
it,
Steam. and follow you there too.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, Steam is probably the best place for now.
Yeah.
That's where all my games are. So, yeah, just search for David Szymanski on Steam. And you'll find me.
Click follow and you'll never ever miss another game.
Yeah.
Can tell you do YouTube.
Yeah.
Speaking of YouTube, if you're trying to find me on there, I'm at Midnight Medium, Twitter, Twixter, Xter, or whatever the fuck it's called these days. Blue Sky also, Midnight Medium.
No Man's Land.
Yeah.
The fading oasis of the internet. Deadforge, if they want to pursue your YouTube and other endeavors, where can they do so?
Yeah, so it's just Deadforge on YouTube, at Lord of the RPG on X, and Deadforge on Patreon, and that's about it, really.
Right on. Robert, where can they find this here podcast?
They can find me personally on Twitter, /X, at RobertYapp80. They can find the Quad Damage podcast at Quad Dam Podcast, both on Twitter, /X, and Blue Sky. We're on Reddit at Quad Damage Podcast. You can find our affiliate links, that's in the video description, plus all of our merchandise links as well are all individualized in our video description. So please, give us money.
Dang, I'm glad I didn't need to follow that. You had all those just like ready and waiting to go.
All right, gentlemen. Well, with that, under wraps. We'll see y'all next time, and until then,
Keep on booming.
Keep on booming.